Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video, we are going to take a look at this card that we made last time, but we're going to take another spin on this. I loved this card because it had really easy and simple repetition. It was quiet but colorful, and it was just a very simple and quick card. But I want to take this card a step further and do something again with a little bit of repetition, but I want to do this in the form of a shaker card. So we're going to use the exact same dies as last time. Again, this is additional inspiration on how you can have one die set. This is the third card that we're doing with a single die set. So one die set and you can create a variety of things, but I wanted to try a little take on a shaker. So I already have this trimmed down to 4 by 5 1/4. This is just 80-pound cardstock. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same 3 dies as last time, and I'll link this die set down below. In fact, why don't I even bring this over so that I can help my placement by just looking at this card. So I'm going to use, even though I don't want any shapes, all I'm doing is creating openings. So I just want to have 3 dies that I can do that with. I'm going to go ahead and use my kind of alignment and placement for that card here. And I'm going to send this through, but let me decide. Let's see, that looks about the same as I have it over there. And I'm just doing the best I can. If it's not perfect, it's not perfect, but close enough would be great. Let's do this one. And the dies are a little bit bigger, of course, because they have that little shadow. So I'm placing these a little bit closer, just like that. Actually, if I do, no, I think I need that. Yeah, I think that's going to be about right. Looks good. Okay, let me, oh my goodness. I was going to do this beforehand and just be like, okay, I cut this out. I didn't want to, show you how painful it was, but you know what? I just like to keep it real. It's not easy sometimes, right? Sometimes it's just a lot of guesswork. Okay, I think that looks pretty close to what I'm trying to achieve. So let's grab a bigger die cut machine. I also want to grab another piece of cardstock that I can place over the top of this because I don't want the scratches from my cutting plates to make impressions on this paper, because this is going to be my final panel. So I'm going to cover it with another piece of paper so that this piece of paper will take all of the cuts and scrapes, all of that. It'll just take the nasty work for us and leave the underside looking really nice. Okay. Let's go ahead. I'm going to bring in my larger die cut machine, and I have my paper with my dies underneath and then my protective paper on top. Do you see all the scratches on my cutting plates? That's what I'm preventing. Whoa, hello. That's what I'm preventing from getting on my paper, because it will leave impressions. Let me just scoot this forward. Okay, there we go. So let's check out, and we're going to need to kind of move this on and off camera so that we can keep working on, oh, that little one came right on off. Okay, so this one, it's looking good so far. I'm going to be very gentle with this paper when peeling, because even though this is just low tack washi tape, it does pick the worst time to want to rip, which it did there just a little bit, but we're gonna go with it. Okay, then we have all these little eggs that you can do something super fun with. All right, that doesn't look too bad. It doesn't look too bad. And once we get the shaker stuff in there, it'll be super fun. Now I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to, in fact, I want to make sure, bring that up a little bit maybe, and trying to reuse, well, I think I'm going to need new tape. That's pretty stuck on there. And I will just continue doing the same process and cutting these out. Okay, so there is my panel. Is it perfect? No. But is it going to work? Yes. It's still going to make somebody smile when they get it in the mail. All right. In fact, what I think, Nope, I'm gonna run with it. I was gonna say this side is a little bit taller than this side margin-wise, but you know what? I am just gonna run with it and be brave that it's not perfect, because nothing is. I have to say, when I first started making cards, I would have redone that and I would have never shown you that because I would have thought it was awful. But you know what? I just am embracing imperfection and having fun, because the person I'm gonna give this to is not going to see that and be like, you didn't line up your eggs just right, sister. So now we have some fun options for sequins fill, and I am inclined to use the green one because I just want a fun pop of spring. And I think we've been using the fun spring sentiments that we have, and I kind of want to take a more spring route to this card. So I think I'm going to save this for another idea that I have, as well as these cutie pies. And I'm thinking this is where it's at. So I need to decide what it would look like if I did white on white with the pop of the color underneath. Would that be fun? I feel like it would. Or do I take it a step further and put a colored piece back here? I think just using the sequins allows that pop of color to shine through. So I think I'm going to do that. But before anything, I need to grab a piece of acetate and create my shaker window. Okay, so I had this at, I have to re-measure 4 by 5 1/4. So I'm gonna make this even smaller. I'm going to do 3 3/4 by 5. Okay, so then there'll be a further 1/8 of an inch shorter on every side. And now I'm going to turn my panel over and I'm going to add my glue all the way around my little eggs. So we're going to just close this in. And we're going to further put this down on a card base, so don't worry about having a ton of glue here. You just want enough to get that acetate to stay in position. Okay, that's plenty. And then again, I cut that so we'd have a 1/8 inch margin around, so something like that. Okay, there we go. Turn that over, really press down. Okay, and now we have our little shaker windows right there. Okay, now I want to build up the back so that, oh, and this always gets so hard. Okay, you know what I'm gonna do to make it easier for me? And this actually might allow us to do, okay, hold on, one step at a time. I'm going to make this the same, yeah, I'm gonna make this the same size. So 4 by 5 1/4. That way these are the same for when I go to line up the back. And you'll see why that's important in a minute. It's gonna make everything so much easier. Speaking of making it easier, I'm going to grab these foam strips that are nice and skinny and trim these down. Now, when doing a shaker card, let's grab some non-stick scissors here. Ooh, oh boy, they need cleaned because they're not non-stick right now. Okay, they're sticky. You just want to make sure that you're closing all the way around. So you're creating a gate for your sequins or whatever you're putting inside to stay inside. So I'm just kind of, it's almost like a fence, right? So I'm gonna go all the way around the perimeter first. That's my first focus, so it doesn't fall out the sides of the card. Okay, using every little piece. As long as they connect, we're good to go. Okay, and closing this up. Right, and there we go. Now, one thing I also want to do is I'm going to grab even thinner strips. Is I want to make this hard on myself. No, I don't. I'm going to add little gates here because I want each of my eggs to have sequins fill in there. If I didn't do this, all of it would fall to the bottom and then these eggs up here would all be empty. So I'm going to make sure that I have just little stopping points here so that, and you could even take it a step further and do this so that every egg, that would be neat too. You're just kind of taking control of the shaker there. It's all still gonna move really fluidly inside, but it's just gonna stay in its own area. Should I do that too? Okay, at the risk of, I'm gonna do it. I am going to do it because then we can use the most out of this packet for sure. Okay, let's do this. Okay, I'll keep adding little, I always think of them as little fences. It reminds me of my favorite Bible story, which is Jesus looking for the lost sheep. Whenever I make little gates or anything, I always think of Jesus shepherding his little sheep. But my favorite story is when he has 99 sheep, but he is missing one. And instead of being like, man, that is such a good track record, I did it, 99 is pretty darn high, that's an A+. Instead, he stops everything and he looks for the lost sheep. And I love that story because I feel like I am the lost sheep and he's just coming to get me again. Okay, so let's see here. Now, the next step, I am going to do all of this on my scoreboard because, let me try to show you. Okay, deep breaths first. First things first, I'm going to tape down, yes, the right side and the left side, because as you start to peel away the liner from the adhesive, your panel is going to want to curve and it makes it really hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel everything away here. And the reason I'm doing it in my little scoreboard is because next I'm going to put this back panel on and it's going to make it super easy if I can just go like this, line those up in the corner and plop it down. So I'm just going to do it all here so I'm not doing all the liners and then carrying it over and taping it, because once these liners come off, they're so sticky. In fact, you know what I should do is I'm going to do my fill first. Okay, and it's not going to take much, probably like that for each one. Yeah, okay, I'm going to focus on that. I can always go back through. I can also go and kind of disperse the color a little bit. So see how all three of these have a lot of the pink in there? I can kind of go through and maybe move that around so that we all get a little pop of color. Okay, so like here, I'm gonna take this little pinky and move it, maybe move one up here. Okay, and then I'm gonna flatten those down. I think that should be plenty. Yeah, because if it all goes down to the bottom, it's filling at least half the egg. This one looks a little empty. Okay, there we go. I want this flat as can be though, so it doesn't interfere with me laying down the back panel. Okay. Now, the reason why I did that is because the liner is so sticky that when you try to pour your sequins, it just wants to stick to the liner. So if you have the sequins done, then you can just gently remove your liners. Another thing is that this portion makes your, like if you're tugging, it makes everything want to jump if it's jostled. So go super slow so that you're not getting your fill like jumping on, just like that, jumping everywhere. Okay. Okay, not gonna lie, I never will, but I'm kind of regretting this little gate part right now, all these little pieces, but I do know this is the right choice. It's going to be so worth it because then we're gonna have equal disbursement of color within each one. And I have to say, hold on, let me peel this off before I jinx myself. Okay. I have to say, oh gosh, let me get my fingers off. I did this whole card without having the shakers all get into the tape. If I can get my fingers off this. Come here. Okay, except for this little guy wants to kind of jump over the edge. Stay there. Okay, I'm just, again, flattening these down, making sure there's nothing stuck. There we go. Looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. Okay, back panel. Line up, place down. And the breath of fresh air from closing that in is not to be ignored. That is, okay, crafting is fun. We do agree that crafting can sometimes be a little stressful, right? Okay, oh, so cute. I love it. Okay, and then there's enough to where it can move around. I like it. Oh my goodness. Okay, very cute. So now we have our cute little eggs. We need to do a fun little sentiment. I think I like this spring greetings or happy spring even. Ooh, I like happy spring. And I also think now we can bring in some color in our card base to just make this even more fun. Okay, I am here to shock you today with a lilac card base. I was putting my card up to a variety of colors, 11 by 4 1/4. We'll score at 5 1/2. And I was surprised to see how pretty the sequins looked with the lilac. It brought out the colors of the flowers. We have a few little purpley flowers in there, and I thought that looked so fun and springy. So I'm surprising myself with this, but we're gonna do that. Let's go ahead and put this down first. I'm not gonna do any additional dimension because we have plenty going on. So in fact, why don't we do, I'm going to do a tape runner just to make even quicker work out of this. So I'm adding a tape runner all the way around. Also in the middle. Okay, got enough adhesive there. And then again, I had sized that so I have a 1/8 inch margin around my card. And ooh, I'm happy with that. I like that. That is just screaming spring to me. Okay, now I think happy spring would be really pretty, or spring greetings. I'm gonna do spring greetings. It's a little bit longer, which I think we have enough room to have a bigger little greeting here. So we'll keep this over here because it's too pretty to tuck away. I'm gonna take the stamp out from another project I was working on. Let's put that away and bring a scrap in. Just like that. I'm gonna do a black ink, but this would be so pretty with embossing powder or a colored ink. I'm gonna keep it simple with a nice clean black. Okay, there's stamp number 1 and number 2. Okay, that's going to be so pretty, nice and bold. All right, let me grab the coordinating die and we'll trim this on out. All right, I taped my little coordinating die down. Let's grab my little die cut machine and trim this little cutie out. Okay, plop, plop, and roll. So there is our greeting. I love it. Oh my gosh. I just love the simplicity of a greeting stamped in black. For some reason, it makes me so excited. You know what else makes me excited? I just realized that today is Friday. And it might not be Friday. No, it's not gonna be Friday when this video comes out because I don't post on Fridays. But you know that feeling when you kind of forget what day of the week it is? And it only works if it works in the right direction. What's worse is when you think it's Friday and it's Wednesday, or you're like a day off in the wrong direction. That is always so stinky. Okay, I am going to top this up with foam squares. I probably should have used a combination of big and little because that was a lot, but that's okay. I'm gonna use my little picker-upper tool, turn these off, and, ooh, tweezers, there you are. Here we go. You could go in the middle too. Okay, I wanted to do this, but at the risk of, you know what, I'm doing this. At the risk of covering up one, we can afford it though. I generally don't do a middle greeting, but for some reason that one has me just saying absolutely. I'm gonna do it. Okay. I like that. Spring greetings. I know I've been using dewdrops a lot lately, but I love it when I feel like dewdrops are definitely an option when you are trying to think, should I stop or not? Because a dewdrop will never hurt anything. It is so quiet, but it offers something. And usually on shakers, I tend to not do any more because we already have that element, but we just have room to do more without it going overboard. And quite honestly, I'd feel better if we just did a little dewdrop. So we're going to add 1 and 2. These are the best dewdrops I've ever had. I'll link them below. And they are just perfect for a final touch. Again, especially if you're like, ooh, does it need it? Does it not? Usually if it doesn't, then don't do it. But with a dewdrop, again, they're so quiet that it's not gonna hurt anything. I am happy with that. Isn't that cute? My goodness, love it. All the supplies will be linked below. Be sure to give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed watching, and I can't wait to continue inspiring you with spring goodies coming up. See you next time.